Battlefield 6 has entered Season 4, and this update brought along a lot of large-scale features, along with an element myself and so many others have wanted to see since launch: naval combat. Suru Reef is the focal point for the start of Season 4 here, with Wake Island returning a bit later, but today we have a cinematic set piece fit for Battlefield title. Today we're taking a look at Season 4's launch offering, what's available now, and what's still to come down the road, with this video sponsored by EA. Now, I was going to kick this video off with a nice little montage set to Freebird that surprisingly worked perfectly with a bunch of clips, but the Espresso legal team said, nope, not today. So, here's a quick montage, but just know that it would have been really cooler if I could have published it with Freebird.
Run! It's Godzilla!
It looks like Godzilla, but due to international copyright laws, it's not.
Still, we should run like it is Godzilla!
Though it isn't.
So, Battlefield 6 Season 4. The roadmap features a lot of cool, distinct features, but today's video and the update recently focused only on Phase 1, the Pacific Front. Now, the biggest part of that was the new map of Suru Reef. This is the largest map in Battlefield 6 to date. Aesthetically speaking and visually, to me, this might be the most appealing map in the game. The crisp blue of the oceans, the green vegetation, the varied landscapes of beachfronts to residential to commercial to industrial. There's a little bit of everything here in this map when it comes to the visual element of it. It's a little bit being content-brained, but also like a bit color theory. I just think this is an appealing map to look at first and foremost. When it comes to the scaling of this, with it being the largest map to date, it makes things quite grand in scale, chasing that tug of war back and forth for those conquest points, making traversal in aerial vehicles or the new aquatic vehicles, cutting through those waterways that much more important, making things like escalation more meaningful while also varied, pushing to capture more objectives and holding them. Topographically, there's a variance in elevation everywhere, not necessarily just one or two stronghold points that if you lock down the ridge line, you're good to go, you're never going to lose a gunfight there. I think it's a pretty solid variance there depending on each of the subsequent islands and where you're at. They can offer cover, flank routes, power positions, all depending on how and where you approach them from. Now, of course, with this being set in the Pacific, naval combat, aquatic features are that focal point. It's nice to just be on the water again, truthfully, but of course, with it being a focal point from simply a traversal perspective, it's worthwhile. So with that, we have two new boats coming along with this update, the 7.7M NSW RIB and the RCB 90. Now the RIB, this is an agile, high-speed boat that comes with a mounted machine gun if you're feeling offensive. It's a quick way to get in and out of areas, to get from point A to point B, and it's one that I would say is just more so your relative transport boat. But the RCB 90, I mean, this is a patrol boat, but more so it's a tank on water. Heavily fortified, heavily stocked, gunner rounds, mortars, heavy armor. It's a ton of fun to cruise around with and just start blasting in. This great to lead an assault on some of those capture points near the water and offering enough seats that it can be both offensive but a transport vehicle to get you and your squad from point A to point B. Very fun to play around with, and in the right hands can be deadly. Now, in terms of the overall combat styles for Suru Reef, with something this big, surely there's going to be something that feels a little neglected, right? Actually, when I was playing initially, not really. It felt like there was a little bit of everything for everyone. Infantry combat, like me personally, I like infantry a lot. There was a little bit of something there for everyone. Close, medium, and long-range engagements. You had your close quarters of like the hotel or the residential areas weaving in and out of buildings to try and capture those conquest points. You had medium range where you could end up challenging a gunfight on a hill or across a bridge or something. And then you had those long lines of sight that if you wanted to take out a sniper rifle, you could absolutely dome someone from across the map, essentially. There's plenty of stuff available for regular gunners. I even encountered somebody with a shotgun in our early playtest, and I must say, at the moment, I was like, that's pretty brave, but I mean, he got me, so there's a place for that as well. Vehicle combat, though, again, a little bit of everything for everyone. Ground-based, your tanks are going to have a lot of fun destroying a lot of the environment around it. There's enough bridgeways that you can end up going from one end of the map to the other. aerial based, like your helicopters, little birds, jets, a lot of space to fly through all of that and take on combat in any corner of that map. Your aquatic and naval based vehicles, these of course utilizing that new space of play in the water, plus all those little canals and waterways going through the map that you can end up getting into that more inland action if you'd like to. All in all, have been enjoying my time on Subaru Reef. I do think that there are some things that can be expanded upon, improved a little bit more, like Breakthrough isn't necessarily ideal on this, utilizing all of those tool sets that we just mentioned until a little bit later on in the match. But fundamentally speaking, I think the map is pretty sound. I like the scale of which it feels Battlefield in that nature. There were quite a few cinematic moments that I ended up having just already in the early days here of this season being live, so that of course is the big focal point. Now, other additional and actual gameplay adjusting things that were added in are things like new weapons. We had the EF88 assault rifle, the Broad 3 carbine, and the VSSM marksman rifle, all three of which do have their place, all three of which in the right hands can be nice additions to your armory. The EF88 assault rifle for sure was my favorite of the three. It's a bullpup built for precision and efficiency, and it excels at that medium to long range for combat, which is like my preferred range that I like to take gunfights. It's got a slow rate of fire, but as a trade-off, it's got damage that you can definitely feel from the receiving end, and a pretty easy to manage recoil pattern that it doesn't really knock you off target too much, even in sustained fire holding down that trigger. Now, it's not suited for close quarters, it's not meant to challenge snipers, but it falls somewhere in between there, again, which is where I love most of my fights. Had a blast with this one. The Broad 3 carbine, this is a solid entry point into that classification, but something you'll want to note is that the inherent pros and cons of this, it's got a faster fire rate, which means more kick, which means perhaps less shots landing on target if you sustain that fire at a longer distance. I personally found myself losing quite a bit of gunfights, challenging things at less than ideal ranges, which is to be expected, but like kind of testing it to try to push to see where that limit was. It was closer range than I initially anticipated. Within its window of opportunity, though, it will absolutely be a force that can pack a punch. And the VSSM marksman rifle is semi-automatic, but can be lethal for sure. The one thing that I think you might run into issues with at its base is the bullet velocity, with a relatively noticeable delay on longer distance targets in landing those shots. But otherwise, it can be very fun to use and can be, again, deadly in the right hands. Beyond that, we ended up seeing the extended barrel, a 4-inch extension for the increased bullet velocity on the M87, M1014, 18.5 KSK, and the DB12, and the LPVO sight, which provides a clear sight but toggles between 1.5 and 4.5 magnifications as new attachments introduced with this season. Beyond that, we ended up having a new season of RedSec ranked for the Battle Royale, and of course then, as always with a new season, a new battle pass with multiple different tiers that we'll end up seeing progressible throughout the entire season, with multiple LTMs and stuff like that coming throughout the season on the different phases that we have here. Now, that said, future content, the next big update we'll see for Battlefield will be August 18th. Phase 2 begins then, and with that, we'll see the return of Wake Island. Of course, that classic from the franchise. Personally, quite looking forward to getting that, and continuing a little bit more of what we have for the naval combat with Season 4. I'd be curious to see what the future beyond that holds, and like if we end up seeing naval combat maps regularly introduced on a standard cadence of how things roll out. Obviously, probably trying to find balance between a little bit of everything else with that, but this of course continuing that focal point with Season 4 and the naval combat. You'll have Carrier Strike coming back with a collaborative twist. You have a new fighter mode, and you have a new carrier POI in RedSec, which I'm curious to see what potential that leads to when it comes to the gameplay there. Then you'll end up having additional content of a new sniper, of the Interdictor, and new jets of the FA-81F Super Spectre and the F-74A Seacat. Finally, spectator mode and custom lobbies will also be introduced in that, with Phase 3 then kicking off a month later with September 15th, bringing in a new collection event, the return of the Phantom program, love that, proximity chat for the game, and a new melee weapon of the Diver's Knife. So still a lot to look forward to in terms of coming content for Season 4 as they continue to roll this out every 3 to 4 weeks here. But that's simply just the content as well. With the update this week for Battlefield 6 and Season 4, we did end up getting additional gameplay changes, water gameplay improvements and adjustments, adding new features to be more viable with that naval combat that we have now. We ended up seeing player movement and combat polish, where movement's been tightened up with sliding, mounting, squad spawning, zip lines, soldier presentation, and things like that. Vehicle and water interaction have been updated again to fit more of that naval combat. You had clarity updates for the UI UI and HUD, along with other menu items, audio improvements across vehicles, stationary weapons, sea movement, underwater moments, Battle Royale insertion, and things like that. And then, of course, general polish as well for Battle Royale. So a lot of stuff that came along with this update in particular for the launch of Season 4, not only to bring us new content and to bring us new ways to play the game, but also setting up for future updates and future content still on the horizon. So that said, that is Season 4 and the update here that we had this week in a nutshell. Let me know how you're enjoying it so far. I'd love to get your feedback down below, but that's where we're going to wrap it up. So drop your thoughts down below, drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Battlefield 6 and other FPS coverage. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, that's what we're going to call it. So thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care, and peace.